a great book called Solve for Happy by Mo Gaudat. He's one of the most intense people I've ever met in my life. He's a chief business officer of Google X, and the equation. His son passed away, and he kind of went into a uh, bit of a depression, and he was trying to, like an engineer, solve for happy. Like, how do you become happy and that sort of thing. And I'll skip to the end. The point of the book was that your happiness is when your expectations are met or exceeded.
Mm,
And that's the thesis of the book. And if your expectations are not met, then you are unhappy. And the applications of this are infinite because there's a couple ways to deal with that equation. Is one way is to have no expectations, like Eastern philosophy, meditate, stare at a wall, I don't care about anything. Desire is suffering, like this kind of Buddhist idea. And then you take that the denominator of the equation all the way down to zero, and then you're always going to be happy because you don't have any expectations for anything, and
mm,
nothing in the world can bring you joy. So in that sense, that's one way to handle it. The business side, another way to handle the business side is like over communicate. If something's going wrong, just call the person, whether it's a client or someone. You see this with customer support. Like when you're starting your software, you're starting your app. If someone emails you and you reply to them within 2 minutes and you say, "Hey, I'm so sorry," da da da, you deal with it. Then, ironically, they might have been upset, but then they become a lifelong customer, and then they tell you all about they become an affiliate for you because they love you, right?
yeah.
There's a really good book about customer service for Zappos, that company Zappos, where that's what they would do. They would just they'd stay on the phone with people, they'd email people back right away, within a couple of minutes. And then the opposite theory in business, you have like blitz scaling, right? Like Reid Hoffman blitz scaling. You're going to cause chaos. You're not going to be able to respond to people for a week, but you're scaling so fast that, well, whatever, that's just collateral damage of growing, right? And
Yeah.
those are kind of two competing philosophies of growing your business. Um, Both can be right in different situations, and it depends on the industry and all that kind of stuff. But the idea that I think is really fascinating, I'm going off on a tangent. My point is that the expectation, sometimes your expectation is wrong because you live in kind of a negative worst case scenario fantasy land,
Yeah.
and you're fighting ghosts. You're
Yeah.
fighting
Well,
things that
it's
don't
it's
exist.
related to the negativity bias. Humans just naturally have a huge negativity bias. Yeah.
Exactly. You're this could go wrong and this could go wrong. And what if this happens, right? I mean, think about this. Let's say you're going to do social media, right? If you guys were on last week's call, we talked about uh, kind of creating the right habits for the new year. And I said, well, yeah, you can have goals, but your big goal should be a big vision, a BHAG, big hairy audacious goal, some kind of crazy goal. And then because it's so crazy, you don't actually have to worry about your day to day because you're so far away from it that you don't feel the pressure of getting it because it's so far away. So what you can care about day to day is just the habits that will eventually get you there, right? And we talked about, for example, shipping a new product or a new service or a new marketing campaign or building a new software, building a new app or whatever your thing is. It could be launching a new song, whatever every X time, right? We said per month, per week, per day, whatever, per weekend, whatever you want to say. And doing that habit is more important than the result. Does that make sense? That's what we talked about last week. And then I said also the one of the big ideas here is that your brand is going to be more important than ever because execution is becoming commoditized because of things like Famous and SuperCool and hiring outsourced talent for pennies on the dollar and everything in between. All of these tools make it so that you can execute at a very quickly at a world-class level and also for very cheap, relatively speaking, right? I know some people are like, oh, it cost me $50 in credits to write my 400-page book, and that's too much. It's like, well, I don't know what to tell you. Like that's 1,000 times cheaper than it was 6 months ago. So nonetheless, it's cheaper, easier, faster. Everything's easier, right? And so the habits, this is what we talked about last week, that are necessary are going to be these kind of meta process habits. And then eventually the goal will come at some point. Does that make sense? That's what we talked about last week. But a lot of the mental things that hold you back, okay, from doing that are, and this is going to be my big lesson today, the second one. But the first one, ironically, is your obsession with what could go wrong and not actually taking that question down to its fundamental depths. It's like, well, what if I launch this software and no one buys it? Okay, then no one buys it. Well, what if I post to social media and it only gets, 5 likes and it's my, wife and my cousins, they're the only people that watch it. Okay, now what? Cool. The answer most of the time is I sort of feel bad about myself. That's like the worst case scenario is I feel bad. That's not really a reason to not do something, right? It's like, cool, good luck, like welcome to the club. You're human, you're an entrepreneur. It didn't go smoothly. It didn't work. Yeah. Now what? Cool. Move on. Who cares? Right? So taking the worst case scenario to its finish line is actually very beneficial psychologically, right? If you play Tim Ferriss talks about this. He says, play out the worst case scenario. Like, what is the actual worst case scenario? And the worst case scenario, essentially, unless you die or something bad happens to like one of your family members, it doesn't really matter. Like, cool, cool. Yeah, exactly. Donna, like, welcome to the club. You and me both. Okay, now move on, right? And we know this, by the way, we know this, like, this is what we teach to children. Like, imagine you have a child and they start, baseball lessons or something, right? Or they're on a baseball team and they go to practice, their first day of practice, and they have their mitt and they throw it and they don't catch the ball. Or, they have a little game and, T-ball and the kid hits the ball and it goes through your kid's legs and the other team wins because it went through their kid's legs. Like, okay, what are you going to say? Yeah, you know what? You're right. You should just quit and like not go to practice tomorrow. You're like, what would you tell your child? You're like, well, yeah, welcome to learning how to do something. You're going to be bad. You're going to make mistakes. It's not going to work. Like, who cares? But somehow when we get adults, we we start catastrophizing everything, and we think that if we start posting to social media, and even, oh, well, what if I do it for a year and it doesn't work? Okay, then it doesn't work. You probably learned something. It's like it's not that big of a deal. And so you have to have this kind of like beginner's mind where you're like always you're taking your best shot at it. Okay, don't half-ass things. Like take your best shot at it, but give yourself a deadline and just go for it. Okay. And if your expectation is that I'm going to learn something, and this is probabilistically, statistically, not going to go the way that I imagine the perfect version in my head, because business is hard, then your expectations are lowered such that I'm going to take a shot, I'm going to learn something, and then I'm going to try again. And if that's your thing, then you're not going to catastrophize and have all these problems mentally with the next thing, right? A great book is called Mindset by Carol Dweck. I don't know if anyone's read this, but basically the whole book can kind of be summarized into this concept of um, whatever whatever you're not good at, you just add the word yet at the end of it, and it changes your life. Oh, I haven't built $1 million company yet. Oh, I still am struggling with how to figure out the database in Famous yet. I I don't know how to uh, make a headline that is irresistible yet. I don't know how to prompt SuperCool to get it to give me my exact voice for my book yet. Yet. Does that make sense? The word yet is the most important part of that entire book, Mindset by Carol Dweck. I mean, it's funny, I can kind of teach you these books in like, very, very, most of these books have like one big idea in them. So that's one thing. Okay. One thing to think about. Another thing that I want to think about, and this is one of the biggest problems, and this is actually very interesting about, Terry moving to Austin or me moving to San Francisco. Okay. One of the things that will also hold you back from consistently trying new things, putting out a new marketing campaign, shipping your software, getting over the hump of learning how to do some kind of database, being okay with the psychological damage of launching something and it not working the way you want it to do. Because all these things are literally what's holding you back. More so than ever because the technical aspects of it of all these things are easier and easier. The other side of this, and this is going to be the main lesson for today, and then I can do some more technical stuff if you guys have any questions, or I can look at some of the stuff you guys are working on. But this is really, really important. Your network, the people that you spend the most time with, okay, how they react to what you're doing as an entrepreneur or a freelancer or creator or an artist or whatever you're doing. That's why you're here. You have some vision for something you want to create. Even if you have this trapdoor perfect understanding of the psychology of stoicism and the Carol Dweck and Mo Gaudat and all these guys, and you're like, yeah, I know what it is. I'm going to have the habits, and I'm going to do the things, and I'm going to have a beginner's mind, and everything is a learning process, and I'm going to not catastrophize anything, and I'm not going to be a perfectionist, and I'm going to do all of these things. Okay, so assume that you have all of that in order. If you are surrounded by people or a network of people who don't also share that mind, okay, it is going to be a constant battle between you taking the advice of us, great thinkers, books, podcast hosts, all these like the right people, essentially, I would argue, and your, random cousin or, someone at your current job or someone in your network or some person that you meet at a coffee shop or whatever. Okay. Because we are social creatures and we want to, not to get too deep into psychology, but we want to maintain our position in society, our status in society, not in a bad way, but just as a survival mechanism, right? Like if you're kicked out of the tribe, you're going to die. That's our amygdala. That's why we're afraid of public speaking, for example, right? Because we're putting ourselves out there and now we're vulnerable. And so now people are going to judge us. And if we don't do it correctly, we're worried about being kicked out of the tribe. And if we're not meant to be lone wolves. If you kicked out of the tribe, our amygdala says you're going to die. So that's why we literally have life or death fear of doing things that are risky or putting ourselves out there uh, because it's risky. Okay. So when everyone around you or multiple people around you are that don't have this mindset, then you are going to naturally feel pulled in their direction. It's like a magnet, you know? And if you're around a bunch of people that are entrepreneurial, that are, risk takers, they have strong goals, they're creators, they're artists, they're willing to try new things and fail. They're willing to post to social media, even if it's a little cringe. They're willing to do 1,000 repetitions until they get good at it because they want to contribute something to the world, and that's the reason why they're here. If you're around those types of people, then doing things that don't work and being okay with it and continuing anyways, you actually get social credit for trying things. You go up in the hierarchy. It's, for example, a lot of founders in Silicon Valley and San Francisco, they get funded more easily on their second or their third try, even if their first startup failed. Why is that? It's because the money in San Francisco and Silicon Valley knows that, oh, that's actually good because that means that I didn't have to pay for all of that learning that they had. Some other VC or other investor paid for them to try something, learn a bunch of things. Ultimately, it failed. They didn't have product market fit, but that's okay because now they're even more powerful, right? Because now they're not going to make those mistakes again. So you feel people that drop out of school, they went to college, right? They go to college and then they drop out of school and they tried something. In San Francisco and Silicon Valley, that's actually seen as a positive. Whereas if you're in, some small town, and I grew up in Ohio, and you're like, oh, I dropped out of college, then in that world, you're like, that you go down in status. Does that make sense? So my larger point here is that I want you guys to really guard what you allow into your brain this year. You have to guard who you allow into your life. Okay. Now, I'm not going to make any suggestions about family dynamics and blah, 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 whatever. Okay. Because everyone always has an exception and they say, well, my ex-wife and da 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 da. She's the mother of my kids, and even though she's kind of toxic, I have to I totally understand. Okay. So I all of you guys are unique in the sense that you have your own dynamics. But I will just say this. For example, on your social media, look at your YouTube. Look at your homepage on your YouTube and what shows up. What's the first things that show up? Okay. Just scroll down the first 20 videos that you see. It'll tell you about your decision making and how you're brainwashing yourself. Same thing with Instagram or whatever you guys use. Go to your Instagram Explorer page. Go to your Instagram Explorer page. Click the search button and just scroll. And it will tell you what you care about. It'll tell you where your brain is focused. Okay. Now, again, nuance be damned. While when I'm on my computer, I'm really focused, but then when I'm on social media at night, I scroll through comedy, whatever. I get it. I'm yourself, but just be honest with yourself. Okay? Just be honest with yourself. Who are the people that you're surrounding yourself with? Both digitally, what you're allowing into your brain, what podcasts, what books, are you reading any books? Are you even listening to any podcasts? What is your algorithm telling you on what are the things that you're searching for on social media? Because you're always brainwashing yourself. And I would argue even music. I know that that's kind of maybe an extreme level, but be careful about music is maybe even more powerful, right? And it's hooky. They become like anthems, to your life. And so, be mindful of what you're allowing as an anthem to your life. What's the vibe? Is it sad? Is it negative? Is it angry? Is it, misogynistic? Is it, whatever? Just be careful about what you're brainwashing yourself into. And I would argue even more importantly, who you're hanging out with in the real world. Okay? Because I promise you, if you spend 2 weeks with me and Terry and Alex, okay? Just imagine this. And every day you're creating a new campaign, you're launching a new software, you're trying to solve some problem, but you're failing at it. and you launch 5 or 6 things and none of them work, okay? What do you think? What do you think we're going to say? Let's imagine if you're with us and you you launch 5 things in 2 weeks and they all fail. And you do 50 social media posts and none of them really work. And you launch some ads. What are you going to say? What are we going to say? We're going to say, cool, keep going. Welcome to the club. Good job. Amazing. Let's go. Let's try again tomorrow. That's what we're going to say. You're going to go up in status. Whereas if you procrastinate and you try to hyper make something perfect before you launch, right? Then you're actually going to probably go down in status with us because we're going to say, listen, you're overthinking this. You're protecting your ego. This is not how you learn. You got to get into the market, go to market, post more, launch something new. Oh, that didn't work. Cool. Pivot, do something else. That's what we're going to tell you. And if you think, no, I have this perfect thing, and you got to sign an NDA before we're going to talk about it, and I really need to make sure that this color is blah, blah, like if that's your vibe, you're going to actually in the right network, you're going to go down in status. Whereas most beginner entrepreneurs or people that aren't even entrepreneurs, people that are just in their career, that's how they would approach it. They would say, "Oh, well, it's got to be perfect before I put it out there." Notwithstanding they don't even know how to define what perfect is because it doesn't exist. But nonetheless, that's the game that they'll play. You'll also be around people that will say, well, that's kind of risky, and are you sure it's going to work? No, I don't. No, I'm not sure it's going to work. Well, maybe you should play it safe. Maybe you should, if you're around those types of people all the time, and that's what you're listening to, and that's your network, or the best person you're in your network is a kind of beginner entrepreneur, then that's going to be where your ceiling is. Does that make sense? So you want to make your life, you want to force yourself to do the things over and over and over again that are correct. Let me give a really controversial example, which is going to be hard for a lot of people to hear. But imagine your 7 friends around you all had 6 packs and run marathons. I'm using this as an archetype. I'm not even saying that that's healthy, okay? Let's let's say that they're very in shape, okay? The 6 people that you spend the most time with, everyone, 90% of your time is spent with these 6 people that are all in great shape. They can run, they can play with their kids, they don't get tired, they can run up and down stairs. They're very healthy. Okay? They eat well, they don't eat processed foods. What do you think is going to happen to you over time? If you put yourself in that network for those 6 or 7 people, and that's your friend group. That's who you spend time with. The gravity of those people, okay? The gravity of those people are going to bring you into better, healthy habits. Tomorrow, you're going to adapt to them. That's going to become the norm, right? Your norm is going to be, oh, well, everyone around me, the normal thing to do is to get in shape and go to the gym and walk a lot and do some exercises and lift a little weights and be good to my body. What if everyone around you, let's just use the Catholics as an example, right? They pray the rosary 5 or 6 times a day and they go to church 5 days a week and they're praying for you and they're quoting the Bible or whatever. This is just an example, okay? You could use any religion, but what's going to happen to you if you're around those people all the time is you're probably going to be more aware of like the spiritual realm. You're going to ask yourself questions about the meaning of life and God, and you may even do your own version of a prayer more often, right? You're going to be pulled in that direction. Okay. You're we're all being brainwashed all the time. All of us. No one's not susceptible to it. We're all being brainwashed constantly. You're being brainwashed by, in a month and a half from now, Terry might be talking about like the Uber man, that's like the famous Nietzsche idea, right? And what does that mean? And why is he going to be talking about that? Why is he going to be thinking about what that means? Radical individualism, right? This is kind of a Nietzsche idea. Well, he's going to be talking about that probably because he's brainwashing himself for the next month because he's reading the complete works of Nietzsche. So whether it's what you're reading, what you're listening to, and more importantly, who you're surrounding yourself with is going to have probably the most extreme effect on your life this year and for the rest of your life. And so you're going to have to make some difficult decisions. The word decision comes from the Latin root desire, which means to cut away, to cut away. So when you decide something, you're cutting away anything that's not your decision, right? When you decide to eat healthy, you're deciding necessarily to not eat healthy. Does that make sense? So this isn't Terry's moving. I'm moving. Like sometimes you have to, and I'm not saying this is possible for everyone, but sometimes you want to increase your statistical odds of success, physically be in an area or decide to cut away other people that aren't like that in your area so that you can create a community that is like that. And like that, if you have goals as an entrepreneur or as a business person or as an artist or as a creator or whatever it is, something spiritual, whatever the thing is that's your goal, think about the meta habits that we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks that are necessary in order to get there, which I'm telling you is not overly perfect something, but it's to fail more often. But being around a group that encourages you to fail more often so that you can learn faster and eventually get to wherever you want to get. And then, by the way, getting there, just to be clear, doesn't really exist because as soon as you reach the goal, you're just going to have a new goal. So it's this never-ending journey, but that's a little bit more philosophical. But does this make sense, everyone? I know this is kind of a like soft skills lesson today, but I'm trying to set everyone up for success for this year. And this will have more positive impact, these decisions, than watching another tutorial on like how to make a website on Famous. Like there's a million of those, come on Tuesday, come on Wednesday, come on Thursday, come on Saturday, come next Sunday, right? Like we have, go to our YouTube channel. There's tons of tutorials on anything that you guys have questions with. If you have a question, contact customer support, email us directly, all good. The technical does matter, but more important than the technical is the habits that you create so that you can deal with the never-ending adaptation of the technical. Because anything technical that you learn will be outdated every 4 weeks. So more important than learning how to technically do something is learning how to keep up mentally with the necessary gymnastics that are going to be required to keep up. For example, I'm hiring a videographer. We're going to San Francisco. I think we've talked about this event. If anyone's not coming to the event, you want to, by the way, you want to go in deep and decide who you're going to be this year, come to our event because you'll feel what it feels like. In 5 days, you're going to feel the juxtaposition between who you are with in your town right now versus 5 days in Soma. It's gonna the differences in the speed and the energy and whatever is just absolutely it'll shock you. It'll feel like you're on a different planet. And I feel that way, by the way. I live in Madrid. Madrid's one of the, happening cities and big city and, big international crowd. It's it's incomparable to San Francisco. The energy, the startup energy, the entrepreneurial energy, the it's not even it's like you're on a different planet. It's not just a little bit better, it's shockingly different. Okay? So that's why we're going there. That's why I'm going there. It's it's and you almost have to experience it to understand it, you know? So anyone that hasn't anyone that's thinking about going to the event, like just make a call, bet on yourself, just come to the event because you'll feel it. But even if you don't, this decision forcefully deciding who you're going to hang out with this year and what, 5 people are going to be in your network. Like if you want to get if I want to run a marathon and qualify for the Boston Marathon, if my 5 best friends this year are training for the Olympics, it's the qualifying for the Boston Marathon is so slow and bad, even though it's really difficult to them, that I will like naturally it'll become easy. Whereas if I'm around people that never go to the gym, are overweight, they don't exercise, then if I go, for a mile walk in the morning, I'm going to be the hot shot, right? If you're around a bunch of people that never go to the gym, they never exercise, and you go out in the mornings and you do like a 30-minute walk, everyone's going to praise you. Oh my God, you're amazing. Look, this is amazing, right? And that is not the group that you want to be around for that goal, right? Whereas if you're around people that, are training for a bodybuilding show or training for the Olympics, then you're going to be pulled up to their standard. So that's the big lesson for today, guys, and it's going to take it's going to be difficult. It's like I might have to move. I might have to not hang out with this friend group. I might have to find a new group. I might have to not talk to these parts of my family as often, right? And then it is what it is. And if you say, well, I'm not willing to do that, that's okay too. It's your life. But I'm speaking to your goals, right? I'm speaking to the version of you that accomplishes your goals. And there is no all of the above. It doesn't exist. This like work-life balance thing. This work-life balance thing is not actually realistic if you want to accomplish anything great.